the Loch Ness monster. Sightings date back to the 6th century. And just when you think the creature and the legend may have died down,
For nearly a century, it lurked in shadows, mocked by skeptics, worshipped by believers, and dismissed as fantasy. But now, something has happened. Not a blurry photo, not a shaky eyewitness. This time, it's different. Cold data, relentless machines, and a moment that left scientists speechless. What they saw wasn't a trick of the light. It moved. It reacted. It knew we were watching. Across the globe, the fallout is shaking the foundations of science, folklore, and everything in between. Is this the final chapter of an age-old legend, or the first glimpse into a deeper truth? Whatever you think you know about Loch Ness, forget it. This isn't just a story. This is the moment the myth blinked back. The day everything changed. It began like any other early spring expedition, with cautious optimism and low expectations. A multidisciplinary team of scientists, technicians, and marine biologists gathered at the edge of Loch Ness, launching a follow-up mission to the famed 1987 Operation Deep Scan. Dubbed Project Deep Can 2, this 2025 effort was outfitted with the most advanced sonar arrays, underwater drones, and environmental DNA sampling tools available. Their goal was simple: to catalog the loch's ecosystem with scientific precision. But what happened on the fourth day sent whispers racing through the scientific world. At exactly 6:42 a.m., a sonar operator monitoring the northern trench registered a colossal moving object nearly 30 feet in length. And it wasn't just drifting. The team immediately deployed submersible drones to follow the signal. For nearly 3 minutes, the object stayed within tracking range, gliding through the deep waters with smooth, serpentine motion. Unlike previous sonar hits that fragmented or faded, this one stayed solid, tracked from multiple points, and maintained a speed inconsistent with drifting debris or known fish behavior. Drone footage, though partially distorted by light and pressure, revealed fleeting outlines, a large figure with subtle curves, and what appeared to be a fin or appendage. Then came the thermal scans. The water of Loch Ness is notorious for its coldness, yet the creature's heat signature was unequivocal, warmer than surrounding waters, steady, and spread over a form resembling that of a vertebrate. This was neither a machine nor a thermal anomaly attributable to rocks or sun pockets. The infrared outline pulsated with subtle movements that corresponded precisely to the spot where sonar had indicated. Thanks to the data they had collected, researchers began to ponder that what they were tracking was not just large, it was alive, an endothermic being responding to its environment. The implications were staggering. It was the eDNA results that really shook the team. Water samples taken shortly after the sighting were sent to laboratories all over the UK and Europe. Within days, all laboratories had confirmed the presence of DNA fragments from an aquatic vertebrate that had not been catalogued in any global genetic database. These sequences were not consistent with any known species in the loch. No eel, salmon, or any other migratory creature. Whispers began to circulate within the research community. Could they have finally documented evidence of a species hidden for centuries? No formal taxonomic classification has been made yet, but among those present at Loch Ness that week, one belief rang louder than the others: that something extraordinary lives in those waters. Before the world saw data on screens and shadows in sonar, the people of the Highlands had already felt something stirring beneath the surface. The original mystery. Long before sonar and satellites ever scanned the depths of Loch Ness, whispers of a mysterious creature stirred along its shores. The earliest and perhaps most enduring account dates back to 565 AD, when the Irish monk Saint Columba reportedly encountered a fearsome water beast in the River Ness. According to chronicles passed down through generations, the creature had slain a man and was preparing to strike again when Columba intervened, commanding it to retreat in the name of God. The tale, preserved in hagiographies and monastic writings, has long intrigued scholars and believers alike. Some interpret it as a spiritual metaphor, while others insist it marked the first recorded encounter with what would later become known as the Loch Ness monster. These ancient murmurings didn't exist in isolation. Across the Scottish Highlands, legends of shape-shifting lake spirits known as kelpies haunted the imaginations of villagers. Said to lure travelers to watery graves, these spectral creatures were often described with equine features and eerie glowing eyes. Though their origins are deeply tied to local mythology, many believe these stories were rooted in real, unexplained sightings of something lurking beneath the surface of Scotland's dark, glacial waters. Over time, these tales evolved, sometimes terrifying, sometimes cautionary, but always circling back to the same uneasy feeling. Something was watching from the deep. During those primordial centuries in which oral storytelling was regarded as the supreme form of historic preservation, came tales of some wondrous lake that crossed interclan and generational boundaries. Untouched by any written account or picture, with each retelling were added layers of symbolism, fear, and wonder. What remained, however, strikingly constant were the essential aspects describing a creature of unimaginable size, moving silently and appearing under the most unexpected of circumstances. The whole idea was never to prove the existence of this creature, but to acknowledge its being, respect the unknown, teach the wisdom of being careful around certain waters, and pass it on. There is, of course, a geographical element enabling the development of the myth. The whole Scottish Highland setting, with misty hills and high mountains, shadowed lochs, seems to provide a splendid atmosphere for allowing mystery to come into being. Loch Ness is indeed a thing of mystery, 23 miles long with depths of almost 800 feet in some areas, and beauty. The black, deep waters, unfettered by urban development for many centuries, hold secrets that are hidden from even the most watchful ones. From legend to obsession, the 1930s marked a turning point in the Loch Ness story, a shift from whispered folklore to full-blown cultural phenomenon. Around this time, construction began on the Caledonian Canal and the new hydroelectric dam at Fort Augustus, subtly altering the water flow and environment of the loch. Almost simultaneously, reports of strange disturbances on the water began to increase. Local newspapers documented multiple accounts of a large creature surfacing and then vanishing into the deep. Some locals speculated that the construction had stirred something from its hiding place, while others believed that the attention simply encouraged more people to observe closely. Regardless of the reason, Loch Ness had suddenly become the focal point of an emerging mystery, and the world was watching. Then came the moment that changed everything. The Bargens photo of 1934, captured by London physician Dr. Robert Kenneth Wilson. The grainy black and white image showed what appeared to be a long neck emerging from the water. The silhouette was hazy, almost dreamlike, but it was enough. Within days, the photo was splashed across newspapers around the globe. For many, it was the ultimate proof that something extraordinary lived beneath Loch Ness. Though the image was later revealed to be an elaborate hoax involving a toy submarine, the impact was already irreversible. The photo had planted Nessie firmly in the public imagination, and no debunking could fully erase it. With the world taking notice, Loch Ness became an unlikely tourist attraction. Throughout the mid-20th century, visitors arrived from every corner of the world, hoping for at least a glimpse, if not a good story to tell. The village of Drom na Drochit, situated on an outer shore of the loch, sprang up almost overnight with the influx of tourists, as hospitality and gift shops and viewpoints appeared almost in a day. Industries started forming around the legend of the creature. Boats were chartered to spot Nessie, while art and literature exploitation engaged ever more artists and authors looking for yet more Nessie souvenirs and media. The legend had become a bona fide commercial product, and the dollar signs from its impact on the local economy couldn't be ignored. Long before social media and the internet, Nessie became one of the first viral myths in the world. Newspapers were giving periodic reports about new sightings. The silhouette was featured on postcards as early documentary filmmakers faced the highlands with bulky cameras and hearts full of hope. Nessie was not merely a local phenomenon. Her renown crossed national borders. Radio broadcasts publicized her saga. Books re-envisioned it, and classrooms discussed it. Belief in her existence hardly mattered. What truly mattered was that she effectively transcended whatever realm of existence she had once inhabited, morphing from a whisper through highland mist into a symbol for the unexplained, unprovable, and all too enchanting unknown. Eyewitnesses who refused to be ignored. Throughout the last century, reports of a strange creature surfacing in Loch Ness have not come solely from excitable tourists or local storytellers. They've come from people society tends to trust: scientists, police officers, boat captains, and even military personnel have gone on record describing encounters that challenged their understanding of nature. From as early as the 1930s, trained observers have consistently relayed details that go beyond folklore. A large, dark body undulating just beneath the surface, a serpentine neck rising above the water, and the sudden fluid motion of something massive yet graceful. The sheer number of similar accounts across decades, cultures, and occupations has turned what skeptics often dismiss as illusion into something that can't be easily ignored. A fascinating pattern emerges when comparing these testimonies. Despite the different backgrounds of the eyewitnesses, the core features of the sightings remain eerily consistent. Many describe a creature with a long neck, a series of humped shapes just above the waterline, and movement that seems far too smooth and rapid to belong to known animals. It doesn't resemble the erratic splashing of fish or the mechanical path of a boat. Instead, observers often mention the creature gliding silently across the loch, sometimes covering distances at surprising speeds before vanishing beneath the surface without a trace. These features repeat so often that they have become part of the visual vocabulary surrounding Nessie, giving credibility to later sightings that match the same patterns. In addition, what is even more interesting is the shared context of these sightings. Most of the reports that eyewitnesses would give happen very early in the morning or during twilight, when the water is almost glassy and the light has some soft qualities, if not muted. The conditions are mostly calm, no wind, no boats stirring the water, creating the ideal environment for spotting anomalies, if not the reality itself. Indeed, researchers probing decades of reports have found these constants in the environment. Some believe that it was evidence that the creature, if it exists, was the most active at these low-light hours. Others talk about quiet conditions improving the visibility at dusk, allowing for blistering seconds that would otherwise have been missed. However, the indications are that such phenomena are not random, chaotic events, but are instead tied to specific times and settings. The consensus from decades of skepticism, hoaxes, and even more rational explanations ranging from floating logs to wave illusions would have dampened even the most ardent enthusiast. But there are enough credible sightings in sufficient numbers and with consistent characteristics to keep the mystery alive. Scientific doubt notwithstanding, the sheer unwavering confidence of these witnesses adds weight to their version of events. They do not sound fantastic. They sound as if they are speaking the conviction of someone who saw something they cannot explain yet. In doing so, they have become strange guardians of the lore odd lot of common folk whose voices echo yet across the water in insistence that something real stirs beneath the surface of Loch Ness. Science coins the hunt. For years, the Loch Ness legend lived primarily in the realm of folklore, fueled by anecdotal accounts and grainy photographs. But as the 20th century wore on and technology evolved, science could no longer sit idly by. Curiosity turned into action in 1987 with one of the most ambitious undertakings in cryptid history, Operation Deep Scan. Organized by the Loch Ness Project, this expedition involved a fleet of 24 boats lined across the loch, each equipped with state-of-the-art sonar equipment for its time. The vessels moved in a coordinated pattern, scanning the depths for anything unusual. Over several days, sonar operators detected multiple large moving objects deep beneath the surface, readings that couldn't be easily attributed to known fish or debris. Though the data was inconclusive, it reignited public interest and marked a turning point where scientific methodology officially entered the hunt for Nessie. In 2003, the BBC launched another major investigation, determined to either solve the mystery or lay it to rest. This time, researchers employed more than 600 sonar beams alongside GPS mapping to create one of the most detailed scans of Loch Ness ever attempted. The effort was extensive and meticulous, covering the loch from end to end with precision tools. Surprisingly, the expedition failed to detect any evidence of large aquatic creatures. For many, the absence of results was taken as a final debunking of the monster myth. However, others argued that Loch Ness's steep walls, deep trenches, and silt-heavy waters made it an incredibly difficult environment to scan thoroughly. Critics of the project pointed out that not finding something is not the same as proving it doesn't exist, a sentiment that kept the door to discovery slightly ajar. The latest method developed was environmental DNA, which was used by researchers in 2018. Scientists detect DNA traces of organisms through genetic material that is left behind in the water. A team led by Professor Neil Gemmell of New Zealand collected over 200 samples from different regions of the loch to analyze for biological signatures. The outcome revealed that there were quite a few fish, algae, and bacteria in the habitat, but surprisingly, also a remarkably high eel DNA content. It started a new spin on the existing theory that some of the sightings of Nessie could be traced to extraordinarily large European eels able to perform unusual swimming behavior and appearances.
Was able to identify that there are in fact eel species within this lake.
While the eel theory became an assessment concerning the large mystery, it did not provide clear answers to all the questions, particularly those regarding the size and movement patterns of credible witnesses through the decades. With every passing day, the development of technology took place in tools, too, that were being used for hunting. The latest studies have revealed AI-integrated sonar systems that can filter out the ambient noise and can also detect minute movements in real time. Drones with ultra-high-resolution thermal imaging are set to fly low over the loch during early morning hours, capturing those heat signatures that otherwise have remained unobserved before. These tools, far from the capability of their predecessors, promise to open a whole new set of avenues in terms of understanding what may be lurking beneath the surface. Just when it seemed science had reached the limits of mystery, Loch Ness answered back with something no one was prepared to explain: the breakthrough evidence. In the spring of 2025, a research expedition returned to Loch Ness equipped with the most advanced surveillance technology ever deployed in the region. What began as another data-gathering operation quickly evolved into something far more extraordinary. While scanning a mid-trench section of the loch, one of the sonar operators picked up an anomaly, a large, solid object approximately 30 feet in length, moving at a slow, consistent pace. Unlike typical sonar blips from schools of fish or drifting logs, this target maintained a precise depth and altered course with a fluidity that ruled out inanimate drift. It didn't surface, didn't break apart, and didn't vanish suddenly. It stayed on the instruments for nearly 3 minutes, weaving just above the silted floor in a controlled, purposeful path. This was not just a sonar anomaly, it was behavior. The team scrambled to deploy submersible drones, hoping to visually confirm what the sonar was showing. Though visibility was limited in the loch's naturally dark, peat-filled water, one of the drones caught a silhouette moving across its frame. Elongated, smooth, and rhythmically undulating. Most striking was a brief moment where something resembling a flipper or paddle shifted laterally, its motion eerily synchronized like that of a marine mammal. Analysts reviewing the footage noted the absence of bubbles, noise, or propeller wash, ruling out machinery or human interference. The movement wasn't chaotic or instinctive. It was measured, suggesting a level of spatial awareness, or perhaps even navigation. At the same time, while the sonar had picked this up, the thermal imaging team was picking up something equally strange, a consistent and stable heat signature in that same area. Of course, this temperature reading wasn't too high, yet it stood out against the cold of the deep water of the loch. That gives a different view on this consistent, moving, and warm place. This shows it is more like a biological function. The heat profile of this particular analogy is indeed more like a warm-blooded bottom than a cold-blooded reptile, and this would quite contradict previous theories about plesiosaurs or large amphibians. That was not a sign of living activity through Loch Ness that day. It was regulating its body temperature. Water samples, collected during and immediately after the incident, were dispatched for environmental DNA analysis to laboratories. Within a matter of days, results came, only to shock the researchers. Expected traces of native salmon, eels, and algae were there. But in the samples, there appeared something inexplicably unique, unprecedented DNA sequence that could not be matched by any entry of the global genetic database. Not a recognized fish, amphibian, or mammal, but something else entirely. Officially, the organism hasn't been classified yet, but many people involved in the expedition have quietly admitted what whispers had started saying. A truly unprecedented find has been made in the deep waters of Loch Ness. What could it be? Following the 2025 breakthrough, the question that dominated headlines and scientific circles alike was simple, yet staggering. What exactly is it? While the data offered no clear identity, it opened the floodgates to a range of theories, some grounded in evolutionary biology, others in geological isolation. One of the most widely discussed possibilities is that the creature represents a previously undiscovered species of aquatic mammal. Proponents of this idea argue that Loch Ness, with its great depth, limited light, and relatively stable temperature, could support a species uniquely adapted to thrive in such an environment. These theorists point to the creature's warm thermal signature and intelligent movement as signs of mammalian traits, possibly similar to deep-diving cetaceans or freshwater-adapted pinnipeds. The suggestion, though bold, is not unprecedented. Science has often uncovered unknown species in extreme or isolated environments. Another widely circulated theory revisits an idea first raised during the 2018 eDNA study, the giant eel hypothesis. European eels are known to inhabit Loch Ness, and some can grow to remarkable lengths. Researchers who support this theory believe that a genetic mutation or previously undocumented subspecies may explain the sightings of long serpentine forms gliding through the loch. While standard eels tend to be elusive and nocturnal, an outlier population exhibiting unusual behavior or size could fit the description provided by countless eyewitnesses. However, critics of this theory argue that even a massive eel would lack the distinctive vertical neck and flipper-like movement captured in recent drone footage, details too specific to dismiss as mere exaggeration. A smaller yet clamorous section of paleobiologists and speculative zoologists has advanced the argument that the creature may actually be some remnant of a prehistoric lineage. An aquatic reptile could be something like a large version of a plesiosaur that found its sanctuary in the Loch some thousands of years ago. The theory goes that with the rise of sea levels at the close of the last ice age, Loch Ness might have in some way opened to the ocean and given a chance for trapping a creature in waters which would recede and dry out. It might have come to adapted itself slowly into this freshwater, deep and dark environment over the course of generations. While most mainstream science does not support such survival, the idea endures because the physical description of eyewitnesses is similar to those of known marine reptiles: elongated necks, large bodies, and silent, gliding motion. Not all experts proclaim the existence of such a creature, though. The vigilant ones are skeptical, since they have always pointed out natural phenomena like wave interference, boat wakes, and seiches, large, slow-moving oscillations of water in a basin, as explanations for more sightings. They even say that this, along with the optical illusions caused by light and mist, does form a convincing system of why many people see things that are not there as such. However, it is undeniable, even in these circles, that not every purported sighting or sonar hit can stand up to such easy arguments. The creature may not be a monster, but whatever it is rewriting the limits of what we knew about Loch Ness. When myth becomes biology. The events at Loch Ness in 2025 did more than confirm the existence of a mysterious aquatic creature. They upended the boundaries between legend and science. Almost overnight, cryptids, once relegated to fringe conversations and late-night documentaries, became a legitimate subject of academic interest. What had for decades been labeled pseudoscience was suddenly thrust into mainstream inquiry, prompting leading institutions to reevaluate long-standing biases. The term cryptobiology emerged from the shadows, no longer a word met with eye rolls, but one spoken with curiosity and urgency. Scientists across disciplines, biology, ecology, anthropology, and even astrophysics, began to ask a very different question. If Nessie is real, what else have we overlooked? This wave of intellectual excitement rippled through academia. Within weeks of the Loch Ness discovery, several top universities announced the launch of new departments or research initiatives focused on unverified biological phenomena. These programs didn't aim to chase monsters, but rather to apply rigorous methodology to reports previously dismissed as folklore. Researchers began collaborating with cryptozoologists, historians, and indigenous knowledge holders, acknowledging that valuable biological insights could be hidden in centuries-old oral traditions. For the first time, belief and evidence weren't opposing forces. They were components of a new scientific frontier. Students enrolled in droves, and grant committees, once skeptical, began allocating real resources. This soon followed. Tech companies have begun pouring research and development funds into the advanced drones, underwater sensors, and AI-enabled environmental scanning tools to be applied anywhere, even at Loch Ness, into remote or underexplored environments. Government bodies that had until then been indifferent or quietly dismissive made way for funding pipelines to sponsor field missions targeting unexplained phenomena across the world. Mythical territories such as the Amazon, the Congo Basin, Siberian lakes, and Pacific trenches now house some highly focused biological exploration priorities. Gone are the expeditions that disprove. Now they are the uncoverers of biodiversity in places the scientist has not yet fully explored. Cryptobiology, therefore, began to delimit the manner in which science could engage in folklore. An anecdote thus quickly becomes a record, cross-referenced and analyzed for patterns. Redesigned as data points, cultural myths are recast from mere stories. The ascendancy of the field revived the very character of skepticism as a wall, but as a filter through which wonder might waft. More than surfacing from the depths, as such, Nessie had forced the scientific world to acquiesce in the hard fact that truth sometimes hides under legend. Into that conversion, cryptobiology was born, not as a reaction against fantasy, but as a recognition that reality might yet have more secrets than we ever imagined. In what had erstwhile been speculation, was now empirical. Cultural shockwaves around the world. The confirmation of an unknown aquatic creature in Loch Ness didn't just ripple through the scientific world, it detonated across global culture. News networks from every continent ran wall-to-wall coverage, not just reporting the findings, but framing them as a moment of shared human wonder. For many, the discovery transcended biology or cryptozoology. It felt spiritual, a long-awaited crack in the armor of modern certainty. Scientists who once scoffed at such legends were suddenly giving press conferences. Religious leaders, artists, and philosophers weighed in, calling it a reminder of how little we still understand about our world. From the Vatican to village schools, the revelation became a source of awe, something that pulled everyone, however briefly, into a unified state of curiosity and reverence. Almost immediately, Scotland became the epicenter of a global pilgrimage. Tourists flooded the Highlands, and Loch Ness transformed from a quiet symbol of folklore into one of the world's most visited natural landmarks. Drum na Drachit, the village nearest the loch, saw record-breaking visitor numbers, with hotels booked out for months and new businesses springing up overnight. The Scottish government leaned into the moment, declaring Nessie a national ambassador of mystery and launching cultural initiatives to preserve and promote the legend. Commemorative coins, educational programs, and even proposed passport stamps followed. What had once been a niche curiosity was now embraced as a powerful cultural identity. Scotland wasn't just the land of castles and whiskey, but of living legend. Not just Loch Ness was affected. Curiously, the entire world became suddenly interested in legendary creatures that had, for many years, been relegated to the fringes of credibility. In Central Africa, the legend of Mokele Mbembe, a dinosaur-like creature said to inhabit the Congo River basin, enjoyed a resurgence of scientific interest. In China, for instance, cameras and drones were sent to hover over Lake Tianqi, from where a lake monster had been rumored to exist for generations. Suddenly, indigenous communities everywhere were being called upon to share their traditional stories with researchers who would have dismissed them only a few months before. Cryptid tourism flourished. New documentaries came rolling in with a weekly schedule. It was like social media exploded with messages, #GlobalCryptidHunt and #Monsters Among Us, as people across the globe were found emotionally caught up with mysteries once thought so laughable. As the world celebrated one legend reborn, a quiet urgency began to spread. There were other whispers, in other waters, still waiting to be heard. The bigger question. In the wake of the Loch Ness revelation, one question began to reverberate far beyond Scotland. If something as improbable as Nessie could be real, what else might be out there? That single discovery sparked a wave of global exploration unlike anything in recent memory. Expeditions were quickly launched to remote lakes in Siberia, volcanic sinkholes in Central America, and ocean trenches still largely unmapped. Teams armed with sonar arrays, AI-enhanced drones, and environmental DNA samplers dove into regions once considered the realm of legend or fantasy. From the icy depths of Lake Vostok to the mysterious caves of Papua New Guinea, the search widened not just for new creatures, but for a broader understanding of Earth's biological frontiers. This new frontier of exploration wasn't driven solely by technology. It was also guided by knowledge long held, but often overlooked. Scientists and researchers began reaching out to indigenous communities, seeking the stories and oral traditions that had preserved local accounts of strange animals and unexplained sightings for centuries. Suddenly, the cryptids of oral history were seen not as superstitions, but as potentially valuable field leads. Elders in the Amazon, Arctic hunters, and highland tribes found themselves at the center of research teams, treated not as relics of folklore, but as custodians of ecological insight. Their stories about shadowy figures in deep lakes, glowing eyes in forest rivers, or creatures that sang beneath the sea were now being cross-referenced with environmental and geological data, reshaping how scientists view the relationship between culture and science. If this blew your mind as much as it did ours, hit that like button, subscribe for more unbelievable discoveries, and drop a comment. What do you think was really down there? And don't stop now. Click the next video on your screen to dive even deeper into the world's strangest mysteries. See you there?